All right. Welcome to the Domestic Draft Podcast. I'm Evan Bierman here with Dan Slowick. Dan, you're already sipping on your beer. Why don't you hit me with it? What are you drinking today?
A brewery, not here in California. It is from Portland, so it's up in the Pacific Coast. It's called Great Notion Brewery. The beer I'm drinking from them is a hazy IPA, and it's actually a collaboration with a brewery called Northern Monk, and they're from Leeds, England. So quite a crazy collaboration, across the Atlantic Ocean there. But it's a 7.2% hazy IPA. It's a 4.1 on Untapped, and a little bit about the brewery itself. So Great Notion was started with three friends in the neighborhood of Portland, Oregon, and they're really passionate about offering fruit-forward hazy IPAs. They also have sours and stouts, and they want to pair them with their culinary menu items as well. They've won a lot of awards featuring numerous gold medals, and they were even awarded the #1 IPA in 2018 from Paste Magazine. So if you're ever out in Portland, I would definitely stop by. They also are opening up some satellite tasting rooms throughout the coast. They have one in California and Sacramento, and a few out in the Portland area. So Pacific Northwest, Great Notion. Check them out. They make really good beer. This one's really well ranked and regarded, and a huge collaboration with the brewery across the pond there in Leeds, England. Nice. Very good beer. What about you? What are you drinking?
Yeah, England's not super easy to get to from Portland, so that is surprising.
It's a long drive.
Yeah, long drive. So I'm doing Hinterland Brewery. This is based out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Very simple logo right there, just an H. But this brewery's been around for a bit. It's been around since 1995. And I'll give you a little background on the name of the brewery, Hinterland. It's actually what immigrants that landed in Wisconsin referred to the land north of Milwaukee as. It was the hinterland, which means land beyond the known port city or the unexplored rural country. The owner there was Bill Tressler, poured most of his effort into music, tried to land a record deal while playing with the band Lucky out in San Francisco, traveled around the coast from coast to coast in his VW bus, and he landed a gig ultimately at Beer the Magazine as an editor. He got hooked into the beer making world, and it was through this explorative journey, he says, that he found his hinterland. It gave the brewery its name. So the brewery started back in 1995 in an old cheese factory just outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin. He says he nearly burned down the brewery and decided to expand and renovate a turn-of-the-century meatpacking warehouse in a production house. So very Wisconsin, to go from the cheese
ever.
to meatpacking warehouse. But it was there that they also added a restaurant, and they did farm-to-table culinary experiences. And over the next 25 years, they launched 3 additional restaurants. But the beer I have here is called Door County Cherry Wheat. If you've ever been to Door County or know of Door County, they're known for their cherries. So they use actual Door County cherries in this beer. It's 3.5 on Untapped. It's 5.4% ABV. It's really, really good. If you like cherry flavor, I would highly recommend. But the reason I wanted to do this brewery was because of that story, the coast-to-coast travels. The guy was a musician. Because today we have a musician joining us, someone that just put out a recent album. It's Mathien. It's Chris Mathien and his band Mathien. You can find him on Instagram at Mathien, Mathien. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, congrats on the latest release of Calabasas. Find it anywhere you find music.
Hey, you're in California. Have you ever been to Calabasas?
I don't think so. I think I've driven. My brother's up near Santa Monica. I've been kind of over in that area.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Is there a story that the name of the album from something that happened out in Calabasas?
My friend Charlie got married out in Malibu, and this is unrelated, but he's also Seal's keyboard player. Seal.
Yeah.
I think he got stuck with Seal during the pandemic. This is also unrelated. But I was texting with him, and he was like, I was like, where are you? It was right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was like, where are you? And he was like, I think he was in St. Thomas or somewhere. And he's like, okay, trapped in St. Thomas with Seal.
Could be worse.
Yeah. I was like, this sounds wrong. But I went to his wedding, and while we were there, it was like the day after the wedding, we went to Calabasas just to like screw around. Like, really just like look at shops and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a place you really want to shop unless you have like
A lot of money.
thousands of dollars on you. And I just kept on saying while we were there, I just kept on saying, we're in Calabasas. And I just kept saying that we're in Calabasas. And I was only saying it because the word to me sounded so cool. Calabasas is like a badass word. So I just said the next album I put out is going to be called Calabasas.
And it's stuck.
If I'm being truthful, it has nothing to do with anything that's written on the album.
Okay. We'll scratch some of those questions off. No. So let's talk about it. You've been making music for a long, long time.
Yeah,
And
man.
I'm curious, in your multi-instrumental produce, you do a lot of things. I'm curious when you started. Was it the recorder with everybody else in like third grade, or did you have like some family influence, and did you actually do some lessons, classes, etc.?
Yeah, I think my parents were really cool, and they had us doing all kinds of different activities. They were just seeing what would stick. And yeah, like I did piano lessons was the first thing, and I was 5. And I could hear stuff and play it out on the piano. But then I just wasn't a good student. So when it came to getting me in front of the book and reading notes and stuff like that, I kind of checked out. So we kept it, stopped the lessons. We kept the keyboard, and I played the keyboard all the time. And then when I was probably 8 or 9, we saw the mariachis at the Mexican restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to each table, like playing songs.
Right.
I was watching the guy play the guitar, and I was like, I really want to do that. And my Aunt Marge had a old guitar in her closet. She lived in Sauganash. If you guys know where the Sauganash neighborhood is in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so we were in there, and she just gave me her guitar. Oh yeah, you can have it. It was, just like collecting dust basically. And I would go down there and play it during family gatherings and stuff, just by myself. And like I remember learning Polly, the Nirvana song Polly. I figured it out just from my brain, just on the top, on like the lowest string with my thumb, and I would put it on my lap. And I was little, and so my parents told me, you play the acoustic guitar for a year, then after a year you can play electric, because I wanted to play the electric guitar, of course. And it was just one of those things that my parents were nervous because I didn't stick with anything, and then I really stuck with the guitar, and I got good after like probably like a year and a half, 2 years.
Just nonstop.
Yeah, that's all I did.
Get home from school, pick it up.
Yeah, man.
Listen to something, figure it out. So you were more of like hearing it and then just trying to replicate that sound that you're hearing, not so much of reading it.
Yeah, definitely an instinctual, just using your ear to figure these things out. And then, I went to school for music, went to music business school at Southern Illinois University, and they were very much a classical like school. And so, that stuff was really hard for me because I was trying to learn the theory and trying to figure out how the notes and the staff worked and all that stuff. But what I learned was the theory that I was like, whatever I was soaking in from that stuff was helping me make sense to whatever I was doing. It was all stuff I was already doing. And I was like, oh, there's a name for this.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Putting labels it for you. And it's like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for years already, but now, okay, yeah, it's an actual thing. And all makes sense.
Now, and it makes you a better communicator when you're in when you're in settings with other musicians who might be a little more like trained than you. Oh shit, and I was going somewhere else with that. Oh yeah, and then at the same time I was always playing with tape machines, recording my voice. So like the first Mathien song happened because I was playing video games too, and like my dad was a computer, like not a software engineer, it was like a database administrator. So he like helped run the database in this company, I guess. But he came home with this cracked software. Acid was the name of the software. So I always joke my dad came home and gave me acid.
That's how it all started.
Yeah, but it was just like it was just one of the first like multi-tracking loop-based softwares. And I remember when I got it and I figured out that I could like record my voice and make songs on this fucking computer program, I like never played a video game ever again after that. I was like, this is the only video game I'll ever care about ever again. Because it was just like having a white canvas, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Recording different things. And so I'm assuming you go to college for music, that you're around other musicians. Is this where like kind of your first bands, or you're hanging out with musicians playing gigs? Like, is this where your first live show is happening and starting to have like a stage presence and kind of figure yourself out as a musician?
Yeah, definitely. It was really a lot for me. It was always about the recordings. I was trying to pass out, CDs to everybody I knew to get the music popular. And it sort of worked. And eventually this kid in the music department started, and he was a trombone player. His name was Nick Williams. And he was like, hey, I'm going to put a band together for us. And I was like, yeah, all right, go ahead. That kind of thing, And then he did. And he was like, yeah, meet at this. We like snuck into a music building or something on a weekend when nobody was there, or like someone had the key. I don't know how it worked, but we were in like a classroom, and he had a whole he had a bass player and a drummer and then another horn player to complement what he was doing. And then it was weird because I was kind of like, oh shit, like I have to basically they're all looking at me, and I was like, I gotta lead a band, and I didn't know how to do that. So but shouts to Nick Williams. That's what started the live portion of Mathien. Okay, we're gonna do these recordings that I'm making live. And then eventually the band becomes just a thing that's happening in the studio too. And then that kind of ends. There's been a whole trajectory that has been just different things, but it's always been called Mathien. So
right.
Do you play any shows around Southern Illinois with that original band? Or
yeah.
No?
Oh yeah. The teachers were all pissed because I was taking kids out of their choir performances without realizing it. So wow. I had a pretty bad reputation. Teachers who I didn't know were coming to me and being like, yeah, Jake missed his horn ensemble performance. I was okay, I didn't know that.
Not my problem. Yeah.
You didn't tell me about the horn ensemble performance.
Jake's cool with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, dude, we'd play pretty much every city in Illinois. We were pretty much trying to play the bigger farm cities, sort of you got your Peoria, Springfield, Champaign-Urbana. We'd play at ISU. We played at this place called, oh dang, I can't even remember, the Pub 2.
Pub 2 is big time.
Pub 2 is big time. But we saw you play as well. Yeah. So now that you mention it, Dan and I went to ISU. We saw you play at Fat Jack's.
Oh yeah, that's what we used to play at too. Shit, how did I forget?
That was our spot. And
we remember that.
Yeah,
they had the stage right up at the front by the window.
Yeah, not really a bar for a band, if I'm being honest. But it was good because from our perspectives, like the guy who was our road manager was like, you should always play this room because it's it's dudes who are pretty much there to meet girls and stuff. They don't really give a shit about the band. So if you can get these people to listen to you, it's good. It was like a challenge. That room was a challenge.
That's kind of the interesting. Yeah. That's interesting to think about. As we're not musicians at all, but trying to win over a room. Yeah. As a band, going in cold and not knowing the audience, how difficult is that? And where do you find, in your touring, do you find the most success? Can you walk in and kind of feel it right away that this is going to be a good one, or this one's it's going to be a tough one tonight? Or
yeah, a bar like that was always kind of tough, but because it was mainly a night, it was probably a bar where a lot of people there, just to be honest, were probably man, I'd rather if a DJ was playing right now. Who are these guys? I think is the air you get. But I think what would happen too is people would start coming to those gigs too, because you'd play the one show and it was rough, and then the second show there were a couple people from that first show that liked it, and then they showed up with some friends, and then by the fifth or sixth show, you have a little audience within, and then you got the outside of it, which is still the people that don't know you, and then you see if those people there are catching on, then other people will kind of start paying attention to it a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fat Jacks, man, that would be crazy. We played there probably like 20 times, so who
You
knows?
used to rock the fedora back then, I think. If I
Yeah, dude,
remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wearing fedoras, which I stopped because I started seeing memes on the internet making people making fun of them, and I was like, dude, I'm not getting made fun of.
Got out quick.
Yeah, I got out of the fedora. I was joking about bringing it back. Like, I'm gonna start doing the fedora again. It's been long enough.
I haven't seen any of those memes in a while, so I think you're probably all right if you want to bring it back.
I switched to the fucking Newsboys cap after that, and then those started getting flamed. I'm like, dang, I might need to just tell people I'm bald.
Yeah.
Be bald.
You just gotta get like the cowboy hat coming up next, man. Go full brim.
Just stay ahead of the trend. You'll be all right.
And if you see memes, just get out right before you see that meme. You're done. Pivot.
So you play for a while, right? And then you move up to Chicago.
Mhm.
And how long were you in Chicago for?
I was in Chicago for, let's see, it would be 2009, 2008, 2009. Yeah, 2009 to like 2014.
Yeah.
So a good 5 years, and then moved to, well, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, was there a favorite venue you played in Chicago, or
House of Blues?
Yeah.
House of Blues was cool because you have rooms like Lincoln Hall and what's another one? Well, Lincoln Hall is just a good example. It's just a room.
I like that place a lot.
Yeah, it's so for playing on stage in Lincoln Hall is different though, because it's it sounds so crisp and good, and it's like you're in a studio almost, that it's hard to feel it in your for being on stage. But House of Blues, whatever sound system they have on stage, just makes it sound so big, and there's that old wood in there, and it just looks cool when you're up on stage.
Historic too.
Yeah, that was
I like going to a lot of different venues all over Chicago too. Like, just as a fan, just a bunch of different rock shows. So it's fun to hear the artist's take of like the sound is like studio quality, but you can't really get into it. Like you said, the House of Blues. Are there other places where you're just like, oh, that place is great, and then other ones where it's like a pretty popular theater and you're like, this place sucks to play at. It sounds like shit. The people who work there are assholes, but it's a legendary venue, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody was pretty cool at these different venues, to be honest.
I think Metro's my favorite. Yeah,
Metro was cool for me because I saw this band called The Streets. It was this English guy who like spit rap. He was like the English Eminem.
Yeah.
Streets.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw their tour. His first American tour. We went to it at the Metro, and I remember telling my brother, I was like probably 19. I was like, dude, I want to play the Metro one day. But by the time I played the Metro, which would be like 10 years after that, I remember walking on the stage and thinking, whoa, this is like a smaller room than I've played. I've played like way bigger rooms than this. But it was interesting that this goal was fulfilled, and I was like, oh, I already surpassed this goal and didn't realize it. But
it's a classic place, though. I feel like a lot of people go back to it as well. It's kind of it holds a special place in a lot of musicians.
Yeah, I like
to travel back.
I also like this place called the Elbow Room.
Elbow Room, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Played the Elbow Room a couple times.
Didn't they shut that one down?
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah. I just saw this band this last weekend. We had the drummer on not too long ago. I saw him, I think 8 years ago at the Tonic Room in Chicago.
Yeah,
and it was the pretty much a bar. Say what?
It was the Golden Dagger after that.
Okay.
Yeah,
super tiny. And then to see them at like the big place here in San Diego, the Observatory, which is like, it's like Lincoln Hall, but just a little bit bigger, where they got the bar in the front and then you walk back and it's got the stage.
Oh yeah. Well, the Tonic Room is one of those places too, that is like so small that even bigger artists still go there and do little sets sometimes, but I guess not anymore. Cause it's like I guess they turned it into like a bar that doesn't have music or something.
So
no music allowed.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, at the top that you started by playing guitar, and now you've expanded. You play various different instruments. Do you have a favorite one that you play outside of guitar? And what was it like learning all those different instruments? Was that just like a challenge for you? Something you got bored with the guitar, you just wanted to pick something else up?
I think I always learned them based on what like a song needed. So It wouldn't be like I want to become the best piano player or I want to become the best bassist. It was like, all right, how can I be good enough that I can play along to this song that I've written?
As you're looking around like you're about to pick one up or what?
No. But bass, I've gotten really into the bass, and learning like being good at guitar and then switching to bass is like pretty much one of the easiest things in the world, probably. And
I was listening to Calabasas today, and I feel like there's a big bass influence. I was almost like, I think some of the songs, it sounds like someone's playing like the stand-up bass or like trying to replicate that kind of sound a little bit on it. It's kind of, it comes through a lot in that album, I feel like.
Oh, that's
so
good.
if that's what you're trying to get into, I think it kind of shows through on the album.
Yeah. Bass is it's just fun to figure out. Like, okay, you have somebody singing this melody, but how do you create this other melody with this lower instrument without like fucking it up? And yeah, bass is fun.
Is there an how many do you play? Do you have a number?
Nah, but I mean, like, if I can play the piano, I could probably figure out the organ,
Yeah.
that and like just different percussion instruments. I always go to Guitar Center and buy little percussion instruments. And in Atlanta, when I go to the Guitar Center, I go to Guitar Center in this place called Fayetteville. And
Fayetteville.
Yeah, Fayetteville. It's like a little suburb outside of Atlanta. But I drive past Rick Ross's house every time I go to Guitar Center.
How do you know it's Rick Ross's house?
It's got a big RR in the front.
It does.
It's Rick Ross's house. Is that?
Yeah.
Is that
At the first when I saw it, I said that's Rick Ross's house, and I was in the car by myself. But he has the Rolls Royce like emblem on the gates there, so
Okay.
RR for Rolls Royce, but also
real low key.
But
Yeah,
then
low-key.
and he's got this giant in giant letters on the lawn. It says "Promised Land" in big white letters that just stand up on his lawn.
Yeah, he's
Promise.
not drawing attention.
No. And it's like, I thought at first it was like a temple. When you see those temples, and you're like, and it's on that huge property. That's what it looked like. It's all white. And I was like, oh, is it maybe like, like you would drive through Schaumburg,
Yeah,
59.
Yeah.
See that temple. That thing's awesome.
Yeah. Would you collaborate with Rick Ross? Is there like an artist or musician that you're kind of like, you got a wish list of people that you would collaborate with?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to collaborate with Anderson .Paak. Would be awesome.
Yeah. Is that like an inspiration of yours too? Because I know he's multi-instrumental, does a lot of producing as well, and then does his own kind of thing here and there.
I think but also he's more of an inspiration for me because he blew up when he was like 35 or so, and I was like around the same age, and I was like, it can still happen.
Yeah.
There was this whole ageism thing in the when I was like, when I had first moved to Chicago and I was like with a label and stuff, they were like, you only got 4 years, you're gonna be old soon. They were like pounding that in my head.
They're telling you that as the label that signed you?
Yeah, real nice, right?
Yeah, that's what I hear about the music industry, like super understanding, like very understanding people.
No psychopaths at all.
No, I give everyone a long runway just to kind of figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and there's labels that do that for their artists too, like Stone's Throw. Are you familiar with Stone's Throw Records? It's the record label that is, I think Anderson .Paak is on Stone's Throw actually. But this guy, Peanut Butter Wolf, he signs these people and then just lets them make music. Sounds pretty easy, right?
Ideal.
Like, you guys know how to do the business stuff. We know how to make the music. So you do that shit and we'll do this. Yeah. It should be easy, but it's not.
So what's the opposite of that look like? I mean, what has your experience been with that kind of thing? Are they telling you what kind of music to write? That's more upbeat. Like, really, like what kind of direction are they giving you?
Well, they were trying to hone me into a genre because I was always trying to experiment with genres. So they were trying to like hyper focus what Mathien was and be like, all right, you guys are going to be like a rock pop group, which is what you guys probably saw at Fat Jack's. It was you know, and I'm
What's
not.
the song? What's the song called? We don't need need to make love to know that we've got it. That was on loop at our apartment.
It was a great
after we
jam.
saw you. Yeah.
Yeah, so that started off as just like you know, I recorded that in West Chicago at my parents' house on a summer break, and then that record it really got really popular like in the college circuit in Illinois at the time. It was like 2006, 2007, and then by the time I moved to Chicago, I had moved to Chicago because this record label wanted to sign me. And so they took all these songs that were already recorded. They weren't recorded well, but they were recorded well enough so that people liked them. And they tried to redo all the songs. So if you listen to the songs from that era, this just sounds like covers of Mathien songs that already were. That's how it sounded to us. And so that was just like, I don't know, kind of.
It's kind of shitty to see that kind of aspect too.
It's just like not. It wasn't very inspiring for me.
Right. And so like the next question too is just that you've already alluded to it, like evolving your sound. And I think like, yeah, when you started out, that song it's very like, yeah, rock pop. This last album though is like, it's very, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of, it's got a lot of like soul, a lot of funk to it. And then some things before I really liked, you released something called Worlds Apart. It was on a record. I really like that, and it was kind of like slower and I don't know, almost like I'm drinking an old fashioned, you know, at the California Clipper in Chicago, and just having that play. It's kind of the vibe it was giving off on that.
That's awesome.
But, so how does it evolve? Like, what's inspiring you? What are you listening to? Or I know some musicians like see a movie and they're inspired to make an album, or go on vacation and get inspired by places. What inspires you?
I'm always making music. So I'm always like, I wake up every day and I'm just doing ideas and ideas and ideas. And then I listen to them in hindsight. And I'm able to figure out what was good. But every now and again, I'll have something and I'll be like, I know this feels like powerful to me. So this is going to translate. I know this is going to be a good song. But then other times I'll listen to something I did, you know, weeks ago, and I'll be like, oh, that was actually good, but I felt shitty that day, so I didn't think it was good. So the reverse happens.
And is it like musicians and are you listening to something, be like, I want to make a record that sounds like that, or you
Oh, I've straight up I did this exercise where I have this huge playlist I could share with you guys called Bump Chill, and it's like, I think there's like 7,000 songs or something on there now, all by different artists. It just goes all over the map. And so I started cooking myself breakfast in the morning and shuffling that thing around, because there's all these songs I just dumped a bunch of cool compilations onto it. So there's so much music on there I haven't even heard yet. So I'm just shuffling it while I'm cooking breakfast. And then I'll hear, you know, a certain song will come on, and it'll be a song from the 60s or the 70s or something. And I'll be like, I'm going to just use these same instruments the way that they tried to or the way that they recorded these instruments. I'm going to try and mimic that and create a track that's like this but doesn't take any of the musical ideas really. Or maybe it does take a little musical idea here and there.
I think that kind of goes back to how you learned to play. You just hear a sound and you want to replicate it.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be the exact sound, but like that pitch or that sound. That's cool.
Yeah. So we noticed another thing that you did was you did music scores and musical compositions for businesses. Are you still doing that kind of thing now? I mean, I can't imagine it's as big as it was in the past while you're doing, you know, putting out an album, but big companies, DC Shoes, Nike, Disney. Are you still doing that? And you know, how much of your time does that take up at this point?
Oh, the reason that work is cool is because you get paid a lot, and it does. No, you probably work on these projects for a total of 3 to 5 hours, and then
nice.
You know,
I watched the DC ad before this episode just to see.
They went to Italy.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, my friend. My friend Nick Castle got me a lot of those gigs, and he's like the videographer. But what he owns his own production company, so he would just pitch it to these brands and be like, he would show him his stuff. Like, I can make your guys look really cool. It's always an influencer. We're always going to shoot this influencer person, interview them, and there'll be the sound clips of the interview over the shots of them skateboarding or whatever. But he was like, dang, dude, they, I was at that shooting those skateboarders for DC out in Italy, and they were like making fun of me because I was on rollerblades. And I was like, dude, they were mean to you? What the fuck? But those guys, that stuff's great. And I to answer your question, I still do a lot of that stuff. But there was a big pause on it because of the writer's strike, actually.
Oh wow.
That had an effect on like sync work, and just like the industry in general got really, and then it was bad timing because it's like the middle of winter, like January and December are like the worst months for music business.
Really?
Yeah, people say December is Mariah Carey's month.
Oh, she does own that month. Yeah, you're pretty spot on. Are there a lot of musicians that do that? Because I think, right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Foster the People, Mark Foster, he did like commercial jingles starting out, and then he made his album. So is this something that's pretty prevalent for musicians, multi-instrumental musicians, to like do these side projects for businesses and just do like scores here and fill in music here and there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
it is.
To me, it was a knack of like meeting the right people and finding out who can like sort of create these situations where you can do this, because it's like, I don't know. I feel like I didn't like apply for a job or anything like that. It's like this guy called me one day and was like, yo, I got to go shoot a Puma commercial. Can you make rap beats for it? And I was like, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, getting into it's weird because like, and then I think a light bulb went off when I started getting the gigs. I was like, oh, okay, I need to find more of these by like networking and stuff like that, which I don't really like networking.
Yeah.
I hate networking.
Especially when it's the what's the word? When there's the pretense of networking, like when you go to actual something,
a networking event.
So every interaction you're having feels like there's these conditions applied to it.
Everyone's got an angle.
Yeah, I don't function properly in those situations, and I start trying to say like edgy shit to see if people are cool, and I'm like, oh, and then I'll drive home and be like, that didn't go well.
Oh man, they tried to push those in college. I feel like a lot, and these are just, it's just weird.
They're uncomfortable, right?
It's not natural.
It's uncomfortable.
Would you say you're more comfortable like in your studio by yourself, just like exploring music, and is that kind of the process that goes into making an album like Calabasas? You kind of just you go to your studio, or
I like having people over.
Yeah,
in my studio. I don't do much recording outside of like for albums and stuff. There's a little bit of stuff that happens outside of the studio that I do, but I think on this one it was mostly here. The drums and actually all of the production on what's the song? Pool.
Mm-hmm.
That was a guy named Greg Clifford, who's a drummer. He played drums on a bunch of my other records too, but he sent me this stuff that he was doing that was like, he was playing keyboards on it, he was playing bass on it, playing guitar on it. So then by the time I just did my vocals and stuff over it, I think I played like a little bit of guitar on Pool, and that was it. Oh yeah, no, piano. But yeah, I like
you like having the people over.
Yeah, I like having people over for sessions, and also like with how Greg and I did it, just passing a song back and forth via email.
I feel like that's pretty prevalent now in the day and age we live in, right? Like you can record your half, send it to somebody, they fill it in, and then send it back to you, and you listen to it and like give your critiques to each other, and just like make a song over the internet.
Yeah, I was doing this really cool thing when I did, like, I don't know if you heard the record Bad Friend, but I was in Toronto and I recorded Bad Friend, and I was getting horns done by this guy Luke and Soul Food Horns, who were in Amsterdam. And so the horns would get recorded in Amsterdam. And then I had this guy, Aaron Paris, he does strings for like Drake and all these like big people now. But he was in Toronto at the time, so he would come over and do the string parts. And
He's in Worlds Apart. I think that I saw that name today when I looked at that song. Yeah.
And then but I wouldn't play him the horn part, and I wouldn't play the horn person the string part, because I didn't want them to like worry and think of, oh, what if I get in his way or something like that. And then every single time I did it, it always worked. Both lines like worked perfectly together.
It's kind of exciting that you can do music across the world pretty much.
Yeah.
And then just like find people that want to collaborate.
Yeah, it was dope. And I mean, I met both these people in person. They just happened to just live in these different places. And then, you know, like Luke, for instance, when we put out Bad Friend, he called me the next summer and was like, hey, you should come out to Amsterdam. And he booked me a festival out there. We played probably 3 shows while I was out there. And then I recorded another album, Good Friend. I recorded Good Friend in Amsterdam.
Good Friend, Bad Friend. There you go.
Nice. All right. So, thank you so much for the time that you've given us tonight. I just want to give you one more question. I want to know about your future plans. And then also Dan and I were wondering if you could compose a theme song for our podcast, potentially, if you got a little time. I don't know.
Hey, you wait till I drink my drink and then
we waited till the end to ask that
Make
question,
us look really cool like that DC commercial. Like
I'll do it.
Yeah. Or like stitch some microphone fabric together while the song's playing.
What are the future plans? Are you going to tour this new album, or what's on deck?
I really need to put a band together in Atlanta. I don't really know a lot of musicians out here yet. So
just gotta sneak into a college classroom, invite the tuba guy over. Get it going.
Out here plays tuba. Yeah. So my plan is to just start playing like more solo acoustic gigs by myself, and then that'll hopefully attract a band. But otherwise, I do the occasional SoFar show. Do you guys ever go to SoFar shows?
No.
Oh, SoFar, they do these things where they set up a secret event, and then there'll be like 3 musicians that play the event.
Okay.
So they sell the tickets beforehand. So
I know something similar for comedy. I do a little comedy, so it's like
nice.
don't tell comedy, and they'll do a set somewhere like at a brewery and shut it down and have like comics play.
Yeah, it's great for us because I don't have to promote it, and also it's always going to be like 70
sold out. Yeah,
100 kids there that have never heard your music before. They don't pay you a lot, but it doesn't matter. Like I've heard musicians
not what it's
mad
about
it. I'm like, man, you got your chance to play in front of exposure does work if you're decent.
Yeah.
But anyways, not to get all guy with cigar. I'm really just gonna continue doing what I'm doing and keep on recording music and putting out albums. It's always kind of the thing,
Yeah.
The goal. You wake up, you make the music, put it out. I see it pretty prevalent on social media too. You think that plays like a big impact on musicians these day and age? It's like put your music out on social media, and you see a lot of like people from the past too, like their songs get discovered on TikTok and then they're trending and now they're on the charts, and it's like, what the hell is going on? Like these 14-year-olds are making careers.
Yeah, my approach is to not take it super seriously, but also like you probably should just record a little content sometimes. Make a little beat and record yourself making the beat and put it on there. But I do it really sort of, I don't have like a schedule or anything like that. It's really an afterthought for me.
Yeah. We struggle with that too. Just like being present online. It's like, we're living our life. It's hard to constantly be on there.
Whenever I meet people that don't have an Instagram, I'm always like, you're fucking cool, man. How are you? Like they immediately have like a cool, relaxed vibe about them. I'm like, dang, wish I could be you.
All right. Well, Mathien, thanks so much for being here, man. Get his new album if you're listening, right? Calabasas, everywhere you can find music. Look up Mathien on anywhere you stream music as well. You could find him on Instagram at Mathien. That's Mathien. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, guys. All right. Thanks again to our guest, Mathien, for joining us today. Again, he's got a new album that's out, Calabasas. It was just released on February 14th. Check it out on Spotify or wherever you can get your music. You can find him on Instagram at Mathien, Mathien. For Dan Slowick, I'm Evan Bierman. You've been listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate the show. You can find us on Twitter at Domestic Draft, on Instagram at Domestic Draft Podcast. Our website is domesticdraft.com, and you can watch the show on YouTube. Just search up Domestic Draft and drop us a sub. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.